Yeah, I'll do that real quick.
Yes.
All right. Good evening, everyone. I will call to order the regular meeting of the Millwood City Council for March. Today is March the 11th. It is 6:03 p.m. And Lisa, could you do a roll call?
Yes. Kelly Stan, Commissioner,
Present.
Councilmember Stevens, you're not commissioner, you're very commissioner way
That's
too
all
long.
right. I'll answer anything.
Councilmember Stevens,
Yes, right.
Councilmember Sanders
Here.
called and said he would not be. Councilmember Van Hees.
I'm here.
Councilmember Color.
Present.
Councilmember Beasy. Here. Mayor Freeman.
Present. I do want to bring one thing up about council absences. I was reading for some other reasons, the Code City requirements. Could not sleep. And apparently for absences, the requesting council member, that absence needs to be approved by the remaining body of the city council, by the city council members. So, although we haven't done it, and I don't think there's a lot of bodies that do it, I would like to urge folks to follow the rules. So at this time, is there a motion to excuse Councilmember Sanders for personal reasons for tonight's meeting?
I'll make motion. I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing or hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none opposed, Councilmember Sanders has been excused. So that brings us to the Pledge of Allegiance tonight. Shireen, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance tonight? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. As I sit here behind the refrigerator there. So tonight's meeting agenda is before you. We have the city would like to propose to you one amendment, and that is an amendment to the consent agenda. If you see for 9A, if you see number 5, item 5, Barbara St. Clair's reappointment to the Historic Preservation Commission, you have a memo in front of you. We would like to add Ms. Annie Oakes or Dr. Annie Oakes to that as well. So item 5 would read Barbara St. Clair and Annie Oakes reappointment to the Historic Preservation Commission. So that is a motion that we'd like to 9A, but
9A.
5 of
Gotcha.
item
Sorry.
5 of
Thank you.
9A.
Thank you.
So if that would be acceptable to the council, if one of the council members could propose that. And at this time, are there any other changes, amendments, et cetera, to tonight's agenda for the council? Seeing or hearing none, please.
I'll make a motion to amend the agenda for tonight's meeting.
Second. Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing or hearing none? All in favor?
Aye.
And so we have amended the agenda. May I have a motion on the amended agenda?
I make a motion to amend it, to accept the amended agenda.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing or hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none opposed, tonight's agenda is amended and approved. Thank you very much. So we have, tonight we have a local agency presentation and report from the Spokane County Assessor's Office regarding the 2025 property tax allocation within the jurisdiction of the city of Millwood. Tonight we have Deputy Assessor Joe Hollenbeck with us, and Mr. Hollenbeck is going to speak to us about some tax reapportionment within the city. Mr. Hollenbeck, please.
Thank you. Mayor, thanks for the opportunity. And, when we first got started on this, I'm a residential guy, residential valuations, and been at the office for about 24 years. So I'm not used to valuations as large as what I see sometimes in a commercial building, such as a paper mill. So when word first got back of maybe an assessment change in one of your parcels in your community, I was at a convention and I about fell over because I'm not as used to the big number changes, and I about freaked out. I'll be honest with you. So at that point, we got our staff started on, hey, we need to start getting out there, at least trying to figure out, hey, what does this all mean? So it wasn't near as bad as what we originally thought, and that was good. But we'll go over that today of what that impact will be for a typical homeowner here in the Millwood area. So with further ado, I'll just go ahead and, if you want to click that next slide, just a few facts on Millwood. You guys know all about it. There's about a total taxable value in Millwood is about $379 million as far as the taxable value, and $474,000 is what's collected as far as property taxes. That's pretty consistent with what it was a year ago. You can kind of see the demographics there. It's about 62% of the folks here are owner occupied in the single family dwellings. So that's a pretty good chunk of the folks here that live in your community. Next slide. Just some housekeeping things just to go over what our obligation is as far as some statutes. We are a market value community, a market value state. So we are obligated in which to assess property at market value. That's the RCW that we kind of live by here in Spokane in Washington State. Just some caveats to that 8440.030. Cost approach is a big element in determining value, but also the income approach or capitalized income can become a determinant of valuation. In this particular case, that happened to be something that was considered for this particular assessment. Next slide. If you could click, before you get started on this, I think, is there a little button to start on that slide there before you get started? Do you see to run a little video there?
Would that be on
The PDF? Or excuse me, on the, should be a little video there.
what's up in that upper link up there on the right? Just their graphic.
Something's running because it's got a.
Looks like that's just, is that the
Oh, hold
PDF
on.
or is that the
Oh, yeah.
PowerPoint?
Do you have the PowerPoint?
Yeah, I have the PowerPoint, yeah.
Because that looks like, is that the PowerPoint or the PDF?
That's the PowerPoint.
This is a PowerPoint or the PDF?
Yeah, it's the PowerPoint. that
Huh.
you sent.
Not sure why that didn't come up.
And, let's minimize it. Let's see.
Yeah, Sean is right. There's something at the lower left.
Down here?
Of the slide.
No, it
That
just
just goes to the next slide.
We saw it come up at the bottom.
Oh,
If you,
maybe if I go back and start it over again. Let's go back to the other slide.
Seeing it.
yeah. I don't think I've ever done a presentation where something hasn't gone wrong. I don't know if you guys have ever, it's like a dark cloud follows me around. It's not a matter if something goes wrong, it always does, right? I'll kind of describe, it's on our website too. If you do get a chance, at the bottom of their, you'll see Tom Conant, you'll see below that, but it's kind of a, I don't want to say corny, but it really describes,
Can you go to the
assessments
Spokane County website?
and our job as an assessing office is just to assess property, and it's a budget driven environment, and really it's just allocating who pays the bills. So it does a pretty good job. I think this little video was $1,500 that it cost us, and we play this loop all the time to people just so they get a good understanding. So if you get a chance to get on our website, I would encourage you to take a look at that. It gives you a good understanding kind of how the tax system works in a very low level, but it describes it pretty well. So
We might be close. Give us 1 second. Do you remember what page it's on in your?
Um,
On your, on your.
1, 2, 3.
There it is. Keep doing that.
Oh, here we go.
There it is.
Now, how do you
Now
get
put it
transferred to
over
there?
there.
Oh, yeah, you guys are so funny. I'll do the best I can.
There you go.
And make it big.
I'll try.
Bottom right, yeah.
So, there's a lot of misunderstanding about the role of appraisers and how they affect the property tax that homeowners pay. When someone hears the term appraiser, they seem to think of a scary figure reaching for their wallet. Not so. Appraisers don't set tax rates. Appraisers don't chase tax dollars. An appraiser is interested in fairly determining property values, and they take great pride in it. Property tax is determined by a simple formula. Appraisers only affect one of these variables, the value, and they do so with incredible accuracy. Appraisers aren't tax collectors or even tax setters. They're just fellow taxpayers, and their primary goal is to make everything fair and equitable. Imagine that you are in a restaurant with two friends. One orders a hot dog, one a plate of caviar, and you order a steak. The waiter comes to the table with a total bill of $100, but he doesn't know how much each of you should pay. If everyone paid the same amount, the guy who ordered caviar might be happy. But what about the guy who ordered a hot dog? Enter appraisers. The food is your property. Just like these meals, some people's property is worth more than others. And it's the appraiser's job to determine how much each property is worth. That's it. So, in the same way the value of these menu items would need to be determined, an appraiser places values on properties to ensure fairness and equity. After the appraiser determines the value of each property, local governing bodies will set their budgets for the coming year. They set the tax rate in order to produce the dollars needed for their budgets. The value of a property does not affect the amount of property tax needed. The sum total of all these budgets is a set number that has to be divided up among all the property owners. So even if everyone's value was cut in half by the appraisers, the tax rate would be raised in order to generate the same amount of tax revenue. The appraisers don't determine the taxes you pay. They just determine the values of properties to keep everything as fair and equitable as possible. When you notice a change in your property's appraised value, the change is the result of a never-ending quest for fairness and accuracy. Appraisers are graded on their performance, so there is a detailed system to get accurate valuations. First, the appraiser looks at similar properties that have sold, their sale prices, and the terms and conditions of each sale. That's the reason your home won't just be compared to the place next door. Studying things like square footage, age, and location helps appraisers determine how comparable another property is to yours. Even seemingly small details, like an extra bathroom or finished basement, can result in significant differences in value in two otherwise identical homes. Appraisers maintain a thorough database of real estate information to make this process as precise as possible. Changes in value are typically the result of local real estate market sales or major changes to a property. Remodel a kitchen or finish your basement, and your property's value could increase. When you see your home's appraised value, you can rest assured that the number has not been drawn out of a hat, nor generated with anything but equity and accuracy in mind. Long story short, appraisers are here to help, not trying to hinder. Their focus is accurate values, not tax collection. The only things an appraiser chases are fairness and equity, and they take great pride in it.
Thank you. I think that that plate of caviar is really, it's not as big as it used to be. I think if you look at the grand scheme of things, it's even though it's talking about residential values, it's still the same concept. It's really just kind of determining who pays the bills to make these communities run. So, if you want to go to the next slide there. So bottom line, is there going to be a tax shift in Millwood in 2025? Yes, there was a significant change in one of the parcels. I think you know which one it was within this very small taxing district. I think the primary question is, why did it change? Why did it change so much? That would be a question that I would have as well. Kind of the bottom line is the owners went ahead and exercised their right to appeal the property assessment. They hadn't. I went back in the history, and they hadn't done it since beyond even 2001. So that was really the first time that they've kind of exercised that right or did that. And through that process, there's a discovery period for us. So we went ahead and scheduled an inspection we had 2 staff members inspect the plant. And generally we don't as you would probably suspect, we don't get on the inside of a lot of buildings. In fact, I've never been invited to a Super Bowl party. Typically, people don't I'm not the most popular guy being a tax assessor. In this particular case, we were invited to take a peek at the plant, and we found there was a whole bunch of obsolescence involved with the building and or the plant. So that's what was the primary cause. There was the massive amount of economic obsolescence, if you will, based upon the market forces of what that plant is producing and some of the equipment related to that. So that was the primary reason why you saw that big change in the assessment. If we go to who's going to be impacted based upon this tax shift that's occurring, I got this information. This is from Millwood, and I think I pulled this down for the 2023 year. So most of the taxpayers, ratepayers, as far as assessed values of single-family homes, 86% are in that kind of that shaded area there. So if we go to that, I selected each one of the price points at the top of that to give an idea of what the tax implications are going to be. So if you want to run to that next slide, this is what it's going to cost extra in the tax shift portion of this. So in a $250,000 home, they would have been paying $277. It's going up to about $313, $36 difference. So it's 12-13% shift, if you will, to those folks. So each one of those price points dictates kind of the majority of these 86% of your people in your community, all at the same rate. The higher the value, the more that the difference is that they're going to be paying in that tax shift. So that, in a grand scheme of things, kind of gives you an idea of what the impact would be. When I first looked at it, I was thinking the numbers, believe it or not, were going to be bigger, albeit you never want to have a tax shift. I was thinking it was going to be bigger than it actually was. So it's never a good thing, but it was better than I thought. So in terms of how I see valuations in your community in Spokane County, we're now starting to experience a very flat, period. I think we had a big run up in our prices. You'll never see me run a Zillow house price index, but that's what this is. I'm not a big fan of Zillow, but I think it was pretty accurate in terms of the flattening in the market that you're seeing in the single family here in Spokane. So we're probably going to experience that in the assessments that are going to be going out for 25, for 26 taxes. They're going to go out here in June of this year. Next slide. This is on a $400,000 house, just to kind of give you an idea. And Kevin, I apologize, I didn't give you the breakdown on that, but I do have it here. I wrote it down before I came here. So before the tax shift, it was about a 10.7% on that upper shaded area of the tax bill that they would have been paying. And that now is shifted to about a 12% portion of the bill. So it's gone from 10.7% of the total taxes they pay to about a 12% overall, based upon the tax shift. So if that gives you some idea, that's just a representative $400,000 house here in Millwood. Next slide. And can you click on that top? Just double click on that.
Whoops. Look at that.
You might have to hold down the control key to click on that.
This one right here? Oh,
Yeah, click where?
this part, or where do you want
It
it?
should go to that transparency tool on our.
Maybe it's the shift
Oh.
key.
Back on the website?
Yeah, maybe it's the shift key.
Oh, go like that. Go like that. I saw that video though on the.
Is it on the website?
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
Yeah, if you want to click that desktop one up, yeah, double click that one.
Oh, that one. There we go. Maybe. What's he doing?
Sure why that's taken so long.
Thank
We started this transparency tool a couple of years ago to give a sense for where people's tax bills are actually going. I think us and King County are the only two that have something like this. So we're just trying to tell folks, we're getting more blowback than I ever have as far as property taxes. And we're in this information era now, and people they're clamoring for, they want to know where's my money going. They truly do. So that's what this tool does. It gives you a countywide tax distribution on the first one. And then if you go to a tax distribution related to your parcel, you want to click that in the middle. And then if you could punch in 45064.1103. And hit the search. Yeah.
Oh, I think it's doing it. It's just wheels are turning slow.
So that gives you an idea. And if you can click the 23 as well over in the, yeah, there you go. So that tells us where each of the taxing districts, how much money is being allocated to each particular year, so you can kind of see on a breakdown where it's going. And if you hover over that, I think it's the blue one, it's one that's got the Millwood, just to the right. Maybe it's the green.
Oh, there
it
you
is.
Yeah.
So that shows you how much is going in each year. So if you slide back down, that's just a parcel here in Millwood to give you an idea of where, kind of a representative, parcel is being impacted. As soon as we drop the 2025 assessments in June, it'll be a projection to the 26 taxes. So you're going to know what your tax bill potentially is going to be for the next year. So something we spend a lot of time on, and I think it's the general public is kind of clamoring for it. So that's all I have. Is there any questions? I guess to start there. Go ahead.
So Joe, I appreciate you coming. I think that the mill's probably year 4, right? So was it an income approach that you used for the mill? Because, so I'm a commercial realtor, I can make net income, right? It's changeable. There's always going to be obsolescence, right? So this seems discombobulated. When we're asking residents for a 12% increase, when the mill's taken depreciation, they have how many feet of waterfront, right? So I think the average Millwood citizen would say, hey, we have this disconnect here, and to take this huge hit in 1 year,
Yeah.
are we going to see this in 2 years and 5 years? If you went down Argonne and you looked at obsolescence of buildings, you would see lots, right? So I think that I would urge the county to look at things like that, because if you're going to do that, then you have to take that waterfront and you have to say, hey, guess what? I could put apartments here.
Yeah.
I could put condos. So there's an unfairness. I think there's a fundamental unfairness that what happened this year.
Sure.
To be quite honest. So was it an income approach?
It was a discounted cash flow that we utilized in this particular, and every year that will be given the income information, their P&Ls as a way to kind of determine that. We do have one other property, and that's Trentwood or Kaiser, is on a discounted cash flow. There's not many that
Like some sort of.
that is a preferred approach, but on a cost approach, and based upon the market, you know, if we would have been given this adjustment likely would have been made years ago had we been given some of this or been made aware of it. It's never good to have this big of a jump. You're right. I totally, you know, concede to that fact.
So I was just gonna pause in, and I think most folks know that typically not always, but haven't lately been on the side of the mill for a number of reasons. But what I will say is this: the methodology that was used which is the discounted cash flow, is absolutely legal and allowed under RCW. And so would you help me out? There's two different ways that you can value, or there's two different thoughts of valuing the property. One is on its actual real value, but then there's another method that's out there somewhere where it's like what it could be. And I cannot remember the name of that. Kelly, maybe you know what I'm talking about, where the value of the property is based on, I almost want to say what its potential highest and best use is. But that is a statewide sort of initiative. It's not something that the county can do. We'd have to do it at the state level. I understand where you're saying with this, but given the nature of the mill, which is its uniqueness of what it is, and you know, for anybody who's been through there, and many years ago, I had the pleasure of going into the mill. It's not just one of a kind in the U.S. It's pretty much one of two in the world that does what it does. And so to come up with comps for that, not to do your job, but to come up for comps for that, it's tough. I'm not happy about this, but I mean, I'm not happy about it personally. I'm not happy about when I see my tax bill. I'm not happy from the city's standpoint because we've now distributed the burden across all of everyone here. But it is an available tool to use for an assessed value, and other entities do use it.
I understand. So, and Joe, thank you for coming.
Yeah.
I think this is helpful, right?
Yeah.
I think it's helpful for citizens. My concern is, and Kevin's correct, that it's an acceptable method. My experience with appraisals. So I think we're all in the same boat, right? We want to be equitable, things like that. What I don't want to see, and what concerns me, is big jumps like this, right? Where it impacts substantially each citizen, a 13% increase.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel there's a level of unfairness to that, because if we're changing. So let me ask you this. So next year, will it be that same type of appraisal method, or could we go back to what they used before?
Well, it'll be on a discounted cash flow. Every year they provide their P&Ls to us.
Okay.
About this time of the year, every year.
Okay.
They work with Lori on it, staff did. So they'll get those figures from them, and it kind of depends on the investments that are made in the plant based on the profitability, some of those things based upon what the P&L, 1 year drops off, one comes in. What we found in the Kaiser plant, once it's stabilized, and this is not a stabilized, this is a big drop, right? What we have found is the Kaiser, it's stabilized because you don't see the big drops. And that's good for the taxing district, and then it's good for the business, because you don't see the large swings one way, kind of another. So you kind of run out of this the situation we're in here.
Yeah, what I'm asking, Joe, is for discounted cash flow, if you switch to that, do you have to follow that for 5 years?
Yeah, I don't know how many years we have on the schedule, but it's, we're gonna follow that now, and I think that we'll get a better handle on it. Now, and it depends on the investments they make in the plant. I can't get into that business side of it.
Right, exactly.
So, I think that in the grand scheme of things, we probably should have been more reactive. The plant manager, they probably should have let us know maybe years ago, because the paper processing, business is, maybe it's not good. I don't think so. There's not, everyone is getting their newsprint, not through the newsprint, they're getting through their phones these days. So, business, it's based upon the business probably.
Okay, so just to reassure the public, you don't anticipate substantial changes like next year, or we've taken that big
Big hit. Yeah.
and it should stabilize.
Yeah.
It's discounted cash flow. We actually have kind of a baseline.
Yeah.
So moving forward, we don't expect these huge ups and downs, correct?
You're not going to see a big increase. Hopefully, you're not going to see, that decrease that you're seeing this one time,
Right.
kind of event.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks. If I have a Super Bowl party, I'm assured.
Okay.
Just bring some beer or something.
Oh, no, I would certainly do that. I would certainly do that. So.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
Any other questions for Mr. Hollenbeck?
Okay. Thank you. If you have any questions, you got my number. Okay.
Joe, thank you very much for coming out. We appreciate it. So that brings us to some another presentation tonight. This is from Millwood Impact. Mr. Jeremy Clark is going to come and talk about community gardening. Mr. Clark.
Thank you for having me. Fun fact, I've never been to a city council meeting, so if I
Welcome.
have any kind of faux pas, just stop me and tell me, hey, don't do that. Thanks for having me. I'm the operations director at Millwood Impact. I've been there for about 3 years. And in that amount of time, I've been gardening at the community garden that's on the corner of Argonne and Marengo. I know that's not in Millwood proper, but it's in the greater Millwood area, as we like to say. So I'm going to share a little bit about where it's hoping to go in the next couple of years. So one thing I'll just say right off the bat is we do have a small garden that we will be starting with the help of 5th graders from our after-school program. So I should back up just a little bit. The kind of biggest program that we do right now is after-school programming for 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders. And we have a group of 5th graders, and they're doing a leadership program. So they're kind of tackling a couple projects related to the garden. We're going to have like a little auxiliary garden that has raised beds that will be in that dirt patch that if you've seen it right on Dalton there, it's kind of just been nothing for a few years. So we're going to turn that into raised beds, and it's going to have wheelchair accessible beds with plenty of room to get around. Eric Rosentrader's helping us with that. I don't know if you know Eric, but he's graciously helping us with that. And we're getting discounted supplies from Ziggy's through Bob Hutchinson, who runs Project ID. He's executive director there. So we're kind of have a few projects that directly relate to Millwood, but the cool thing is this garden will be hopefully a community-focused area. So people from this community can just walk right across the bridge, and the hope is that anyone from this community can benefit. So we're working with a permaculture design consultant. I'm not sure if everyone got that, but we have a design plan that was put together by a lady named Mary Bishop. And this design is kind of helping us to intentionally step forward in stack functions at that garden. So for the life of that garden, which has been somewhere around 13 years, since it's kind of existed as it is. It's been an amazing resource for people that know how to garden. So if someone's motivated to go out there and have their own bed, it's been incredible for those people. But back in September, Millwood Impact took it on, and we had to ask the question, well, how does this fit within our mission? So some of the specific areas where it fits in are addressing food security. So we've been delivering meals to families in, again, the greater Millwood area, West Valley. These are families that are referred to us from the school district mostly, but families that are low income, struggling to get from month to month. So we'll deliver frozen from scratch made meals from Women and Children's Free Restaurant. And those families are on a list. We have about 30 families that we reach out to. I reach out to every other week just to see if they have any needs. And it's not every week that every family has a need, but I find that there's kind of a rhythm. You know, there's some families that need it about every 2 months, and there are families that need it every single time. So last year, before we took on managing the garden, we experimented with paying for their beds. So Millwood Impact covered the rental fee for their bed, and we helped them with getting starts. We helped them kind of manage their beds. If they had any kind of questions about gardening, we did our best to kind of fill the gaps for them. That was pretty successful, and some of these families, especially the ones that really were every single time needing those meals, they started gardening with us, and they grew their own food. So when we took on the garden in September, we started asking the question, how do we expand that? So the first thing we did was we took away the rental fee. So any family that wants to garden, or any person that wants to garden, it's donation only. So if someone decides they want to garden with us, there is no required fee. Lucky for us, we have funding from other sources, grants and individual donors that can cover the costs of basic maintenance. We also have a few gardeners that are willing to donate, so that helps. Some are willing to donate much more than the $20 that we were asking before. So we have a few plans that are kind of focused around the food security side of things. We also have a strong emphasis on education. So in the past, if you were out there with someone who was an experienced gardener, you may kind of learn some from just being in proximity, some scientific names and some basics around what plants grow well together. But we have reached out to the Outdoor Learning Center, and they're willing to teach a few classes. We have a few gardeners who have experience in particular areas that are willing to teach classes. So we're putting a strong emphasis on education around gardening, and that will be available on our website. So millwoodimpact.org, there's a tab now that says Community Garden, and under there's a calendar that has all the events that are coming up in the future. The first one is the handout that you all have, March 22nd, and that will be kind of an informational time. So if anyone wants to come out and just get a tour of the garden, get a lay of the land, and kind of an introduction to the space. It's been called the Pumpkin Patch for all these years, and we want to respect the history of the space, and we also want to do our very best to expand it, grow it. A few other really exciting developments. We're getting chickens out there. So we'll have a few kids that are kind of a part of that project as well. We are going to create some systems around, so we'll have some more raised beds. So we have the raised beds over here. Those are primarily for Project ID. We'll have some raised beds. We already have one. And it's Shosugiban method, where you burn the boards. So it's like typical framing lumber, but it's burned in such a way and sealed in such a way that it should last 80 years. So we're thinking really far in the future. So we want to respect the past. We also want to really work on planning for the future. The hope is, too, that anyone who lives in this community will benefit from the aesthetic improvements. So that might appeal to each of you in just the sense that you're driving down Argonne, there might be a little more beauty over there. So working on getting some perennials out there, a food forest. So we'll have areas where people walking through, because we know that there are people who won't garden with us, but will walk through. We hope that they can also benefit just by picking the fruit that's available there or the vegetables that are ready throughout the season. So those are kind of the main areas, I think, that pertain to this community. I don't know if anyone has any particular
Do you
questions.
want to talk a little bit about the expansion though? Because
Yeah.
we're actually been partnering with IEP and
Yes.
you're getting more acreage.
Yes,
So
that's true.
that's the reveal.
Yes, that's the big reveal. IEP owns all the lots that are all the way from Argonne on Marengo to the Donkey Island Trailhead. And we asked them if they were okay with us expanding. So, to our surprise, they said that that would be fine. Currently, those lots are vacant, so they're happy with us planting whatever we want. So we could plant trees, we can plant wheat, we can go further out with other, low footprint creatures like chickens. So this season we're focusing on making that 1 acre area that we're currently operating on as robust as we possibly can, planting there. But we do plan on moving further east on Marengo to that next lot over and then further as, manpower and willpower make it available.
And we can always be bringing organic, like wood chips and leaves and
Yes.
such onto the property to be
Right.
building soil while we wait to develop that
Yeah.
area.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Any questions? It's very exciting. Thank you very
Yeah,
much for coming
thanks
in.
for having
Thank
me.
you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Shauna, for having Millwood Impact in. Appreciate it. You want to move it to the end? Okay. So that concludes our reports for this evening. At this time, we come to the public comments concerning action items. Have we received any public comments concerning any of the action items, written, email, or otherwise? No. No, we have received no public comments. What? There is.
Yeah, just making sure.
Okay, so in your notes, in section 9B, Mr. Worst did remind us that there is an email on page 47 regarding the ordinance 544, which is being returned for consideration tonight. And that was a previous one, but as Mr. Worth says, better to note it than to not note it. So we do have one in there. So we do have an executive session tonight. Mr. Worth would like to move that to the very end of the meeting.
I don't anticipate asking for action from the council, so maybe if we could move it to the end, keep your legislative agenda moving, that'd be good.
I don't think there is any action, is there?
No.
So there would be no action on taken coming out of executive session. So if that is acceptable to the council, we will move on to our action items. Anybody have any issues with moving that to the end? Okay, so there is an executive session. There will be no action taken out of coming out of the executive session, but we will move that to the end of our agenda prior to the actual close of the meeting. So now we are at item number 8, our action items for first reading. Action item 8A is a special event permit for the Millwood Farmers Market for 2025. Ms. Castles.
Yes, this is the normal, same one that we typically get for the farmer's market. I believe the start date on this one is May 8th when they kick off. And 28th, thank you, 28th, May 28th. That was what I was thinking in my head. It's actually come out of my mouth. So no changes. The market manager, Jessica, was in discussing if there was any changes to that and anything going on, and I said, to my knowledge, everything was good last year, so everything seems to be a go with what they've been doing. However,
So
Brian,
I'll just tee this up, as part of, on page 7, there is the farmer's market has requested a fee waiver as part of a 501c3 nonprofit. And so Mr. Worst had some potential concerns on that.
Well, let me just preface it with the fee waiver's been processed by the city before. I've not seen the applications for these in years past. This is the first time I've seen it in the council packet. Your city code requires a finding by the city to be made for the fee waiver under MMC 1210-080. The city code and the application also require that it be filed 90 days in advance of the first event for the fee waiver, which this is unfortunately about 4 days shy. Still something you can address, but I think if you're going to waive the fee, I think we need to make sure that we do something on the record, because if you're going to waive the fee without doing something on the record here, you might as well just waive the fee on every special event application, which is not necessarily the same. Those applications are the same. So I think when we come back to you on the second reading, if that's where you want to go, the city council is just going to need to make that finding under the city code that there's sufficient public benefit to warrant expenditure of city funds, and there's no private financial gain.
and I apologize for not catching that. I that should have caught that.
How much is the fee?
I don't know.
It's $50 for application, and then $200 for the permit.
Okay.
So $250 total.
So if council wishes, we can direct staff to, as part of the next meeting, have a finding generated up consistent with language that Mr. Worst said. Also, I think since it is a 503c C3, we could include that as part of the finding and go from there. I'm not necessarily sure that the 90 days is that received or considered.
No, your application, there's a provision in your city code that says that fee rules, regulations, and forms, documents, applications can include requirements. You guys can remove that 90 days beforehand. I'm not really sure why the application says all fee waiver requests must be submitted in writing to the city clerk at least 90 days before the date of the special event. I think that's primarily a processing issue. I think what we have had is people come in right at the day before the event and say, "Can I waive the fee?" So there might be some happy middle ground there. I'm obligated to just raise those to you, because if you process it without addressing it, and then the next time someone else comes through and wants it, we just need to make sure that we're trying to apply the city code uniformly there. So
Well, I think the
Oh, go ahead, sorry.
Well, I think the farmer's market's like a kind of a centerpiece of our city, and so I would like to move that we have move the staff to prepare the finding for consideration with next month.
We will have in your packet as part of, for consideration next month, a finding that you may or may not accept regarding the fee waiver, and then I think in the future we can discuss if we want to keep that 90 days or if we want to go to something like 60 days or something like that. I don't think we should have nothing in there for days, because I do think that given that special events permits have to come before the council, we need some level of lead time to take the permit, process it, make sure that we can get it before the council before an event. So I don't think we should just ditch that sentence. Okay. All right, so read, heard, and that will be on next month's agenda. Next item is the special event permit for the Spokane Canoe and Kayak Club.
I'll take this one too. So this is a new one, a new request that came in an email. I've had numerous emails with this, the lady that's putting this on. You can tell by the application that she hasn't done this before, so we've had numerous emails back and forth. And I think it might be kind of a fun event. for the city, and I did tell her that we have a two-touch system now, so we needed to get it in ASAP. And she is working on the insurance. They don't have that yet, but that is typical. That happens a lot with these. They'll have things, most of it, as long as they have that in time. But this way, it gives you guys a chance to take a look at it. It had to come before you because they are going to be selling merchandise in the park. That has to be approved by you guys specifically because there is selling going on. And it's just going to be kind of a swap meet sort of thing, it sounds like, for kayaking and canoeing. Their map that they showed of how it is a little weak, but in the description, it does describe what they're going to do and the area they're going to use. So it was like, oh, okay, it works. Anyway, so, and they have paid the $50 application fee to this point, so they submitted the application fee with the application, and we'll move forward from there, if you guys want to. They have they don't expect more than 40, they do have a traffic plan, it's the parking is there with overflow parking at the end if you read it.
I don't have.
Oh, well, you have access to one all the time. You can have it.
I'll ask Kyle before we open it up. Have you reviewed this?
I had a brief discussion with Lisa about it.
Do you have any concerns?
I don't really. We kind of talked, my big thing is cars in the park and damage. And before I could even say anything, she said that they were not going to be having any vehicles in the park. They'd have them up top, and if we could maybe just open a gate or something to be able to get the kayaks and canoes down there for presentation or for sale, whatever. And I'm good with it.
Any questions for Lisa or Kyle at this point on this permit? So this will come back to you for consideration at the April meeting. Lisa can update you at that time on if they are meeting or have met the requirements of the special event permit at that time. Yes.
Earlier you said that we might revisit the 90 days. I was just gonna add on to that. We wanna at least have it be 65 days because we have a two-touch system, so that's all I was gonna say.
Yeah, and that definitely makes a difference, especially for a new permit. I mean, yeah, I agree.
That may also require a code revision on the timing. I'd have to look at the code to recall, but I think we have is it 30 or 60 days to have it filed in advance of the event, so we'll look.
Yeah.
There is 30 days in advance of the event.
15 actually, I think it is.
Is it? I thought we
believe it
put
is
30.
There's multiple. I think there's a time for filing, and then the event can't be within, because oftentimes the application comes in and it's not final. It's missing the traffic plan, missing the certificate of insurance, and we don't process it until the final application's been submitted. So.
Right. And I think that's a lot why we, in the fee schedule, we did the $50 application fee, because a lot of times, a lot of work goes into the application and then they never get us everything. And so at least that way you're recouping a little bit of your time for that process.
Any other questions? So we will city will bring back item 8B at the April meeting. Item 8C, the final bids for construction of the Argonne Congestion Relief Project. We're gonna ask Mr. Gillis to come forth and present the results of the bid opening. Please.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council, Matt Gillis, Welchcomer Engineers. So it's been 6 years working on this project. I believe you have the results of the bids in your packets. We received 6 responsive bids. Responsive means they all did it right. I don't think so. I think everybody's got them in front of them. The lowest bidder was Liberty Concrete, very close to our estimate, and everybody else was quite a bit higher, and up above 3 million. Liberty was, what were they, 2.3 something? 2.3, yeah, and very close to our estimate. I believe you have the recommendation of award packet or information in your packets. The DOT is currently reviewing the the bid information as well. So any action, if you chose to tonight, would be subject to the DOT's review as well. They represent you, the local programs office, so it's a good thing that they are reviewing the bids as well. So, but as far as we can tell, everything is good. All the math is good. All the documents are good. So everything is okay.
Questions for Mr. Gillis?
Is there anything you could, the bid numbers are so drastic. Now, I think I understand why. But could you explain why it is that Liberty was so much cheaper than the next?
So I asked that very question because whenever we see an anomaly like this, we get nervous. Like, what did you miss? And so I called the owner, because I know him, and asked him, and he said, no, we're very comfortable with it. The documents were clear. The primary reason we are so much less is because they're self-performing all of the DBE requirements, the disadvantaged business enterprise requirements. They have other companies, traffic control primarily, that's his company, his wife's company, I believe, officially. And so that was the reason I was given. Still makes me a little nervous, which I think is healthy. We'll just be on guard.
I would say this contractor's been the low bidder on 2 other public agencies that I represent, and they were the substantial low bidder for the very same reason, the self-performance of work.
Now, when you self-perform, you don't have to charge that 10% on top, so I get it.
All right. Any other questions for Mr. Gillis? So, under Washington state law and the bidding and procurement, Welch has determined that all bids are responsive and meet the requirements of WashDOT and the contract. So the bid that is presented as the lowest responsive bid is by law the bid that we must accept because that's the way it works here. So
Subject to WashDOT's
final approval, so ka-chunk. So we, in the spirit of needing to move forward, to begin to discuss to get out the public outreach plan, which is part of the contract that the Liberty Concrete would be handling. Also to begin working with Inland Empire Paper, bringing everybody involved, getting the schedule finalized, everything like that. We're looking to get this approved as soon as possible. I realize we have a 2-touch system, so I am going to ask the council though tonight, because nothing is going to change on this bid. It is the consideration of this still results in selecting the lowest responsive bidder, that I would ask the council that tonight to move to consideration for acceptance of Liberty Concrete for the construction of the Argonne Congestion Relief Project. If the council is uncomfortable, I am going to ask for a special meeting to handle that selection as soon as possible, which would be, how many hours do we need? 24 hours. So we could literally come back here tomorrow or Thursday to do it. We've talked with Matt, we've talked with Kyle. Basically, in order to execute the project, and let's be clear, we have people that are concerned on this. I think the first step in making sure that people are not concerned is to get well in front of anything in the street. And that means getting folks on board, engaging the public outreach people, setting up the meetings with Inland Empire, going to meet with the potentially affected business owners, all that sort of stuff, having the outreach, having Mr. Gillis and the project engineer and the project superintendent meeting with the contractor superintendent, meeting with our public facilities person, and getting everything going. So I think time is of the essence on this. I think that we know that I do believe that there are some individuals in the city that somehow believe that this may or may not happen. I don't know what to say to that effect. We have a project, we have bids, we're here. It's a good project, blah, 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 but, so that's the question. So that's what I'm asking for the council tonight.
So Matt, does Welch have any other projects with Liberty that you know of?
We do, yeah, we're doing a big treatment plant up in Kingston with them. I'm not personally, one of my coworkers is. However, I've worked with Liberty or Tila Riviere several times. I do understand that they've undergone some scrutiny and some changes. And so I think, though, that it's important to assuage concerns. I think it's important that the city understands you have a contract. You have a vetted contract that was developed through the DOT over decades, right? So they've been through this many, many times. Within that contract, which is hundreds of pages, because it references the specifications, you have things like liquidated damages. So in our particular case, Liberty will be given 75 working days to get their work done. Now, change happens, right? They'll end up getting extra days because surprises happen. That's what happens on public works projects. So they'll be given that. But any days they go over their allotted days, they'll be assessed a $3,600 per day penalty. So that is an incentive to do their work in accordance with the contract. You also have retainage. So every time we pay a bill, Debbie holds back 5% through the whole thing. That's another incentive to encourage them to perform in accordance with the contract they signed with you. And then there are performance bonds, warranty bonds, those types of things, which is essentially insurance. So if they, for whatever reason, and they won't, but if they walk off the job, we have an insurance policy that will get the project done on behalf of the public. Also, we will be meeting with them constantly. Our job is to enforce the contract, not to manage them, but to ensure the project gets done in accordance with the contract documents. And part of that is the schedule. So we'll be reviewing the schedule every single week. And the schedule we get on day one will be different than the schedule we get later on in the project because things change. But we're going to be right up in the mix managing that. Did that help?
I mean, yeah, it just sounds like Liberty's trying to improve their image, so they might be eager to get this done. Whereas if you remember the last project with Red Diamond, there were several days of idle equipment and businesses that had limited access, which we want to avoid.
Understood. Yes, I remember it well. Yeah.
Yeah, you were at the meetings with me and Brian Ellison.
Yep, we were there.
Yes.
Yep, and yes, on occasion, a what appears like no work is happening, that isn't quite true because it's sequencing.
No,
I get it.
But the optics were
the
not
optics
great.
are tough. Mm-hmm. I think now though is a pretty good time, if there is a good time, to be working with a contractor who's trying to reshape their reputation. Frankly.
Yeah, I know that restructuring happens a lot of times for the better.
Mm-hmm.
I have faith in the fact that this company will be able to fulfill the contract.
I also want to add, so the project that Matt was talking about in North Idaho, I'm counsel on that project as well. And that board went through the same mental exercise that you're going through. One of the things that we talked about last week, the mayor and Matt and Adam and myself and Kyle, is kind of a sit down at the beginning of the project. There's always a kickoff meeting, right? But this would be a kickoff meeting on steroids because this has not just the city and the contractor, but we've got IEP, we've got commitments to IEP, we've got public participation and communication in the community. So really let's start off on the right foot. They understand, I believe they understand the nature of the importance of this project to this community as well, the components of it. One might speculate, and I'll do it openly, one might speculate that those unique components and those community components factored into why some of the other contractors' bids are a little higher.
Yeah.
To become a part of the community on a project tends to cost money, and I think they factored that into their bids. But I am familiar with Liberty Concrete. They're other affiliated companies on another project. The optimistic side of me would say this is the time you want to work with this particular party there, and we can help them help themselves see their way through this project and do a good project.
Shauna?
It's my understanding, though, as you outlined it, that if this is an approved, a verified bid, and then the DOT approves it, like, we don't have a real choice. I mean, I think it's good that we're considering all these things, but it's not, we're obligated.
Your option is to reject all bids and start over.
But
in
then
Washington.
they come back low bidder again.
Yeah.
So what happened?
Exactly.
What
Everything's
happened
going
on the Idaho project, public record, is all bids were rejected, and they came back and they were still the low bidder, but $200,000 more.
So while we're talking about this, and this I want to make clear, I understand everybody's hesitancy and concern about this contractor. I can look down this list and I can have concerns with every one of these contractors from past experience from working with them in various capacities. What I would say is this: the goal of the city as the owner is to begin this project as quickly as possible so we have the upfront time to do the due diligence and to do the outreach and work and all of the things that maybe last time when we did a project of this type, which was Red Diamond and the full depth reclamation, that we avoid those issues. We have a very strong team between the contractor, the engineer, and the city. Everybody's met each other. Everybody understands their expectations. Everybody has gone arm in arm up and down Argonne and spoken with businesses, so businesses know who is a point of contact. We have a definitive time and place for schedule updates, for outreach, for contact points, for questions. That's all out there and is well defined prior to the project. We've met with Inland Empire Paper. We know everything that has to be done, and we have fully discussed the entire team with Inland Empire as to when and what's going to happen. And so that is what takes time. I think what we're looking at with the schedule, which we got already a little bit of pushback, but I have personally committed to, is we will not start any construction until after the Mother's Day tour. Anything. So we want to, after that, nothing's going to happen until after the first week in May. Then we're going to do some serious sequencing and looking at how are we going to avoid disturbances, where are we going to start, what are we going to do, and we have 75 days to do it in. So we want to be ready to go. We want to have all of the upfront work done. We want to have all the outreach. We want to have all of the public notice. We want to have everything like that. And then when time comes, we want to go. We want to work diligently. We want to work quickly. We want to work quality work. And you only get that by getting these teams in place.
Right.
And so that's kind of the goal of this. It's made, I don't think we can make it any clearer to our engineer that there's gonna be some serious scrutiny from the owner's part on this. And that we're expecting, and that's gonna be made clear to whatever contractor it is, that there's gonna be some serious scrutiny from the owner through the engineer to the contractor on this.
All that being said, I am willing to make a motion to award Liberty Concrete the Argonne Empire Congestion Relief Project.
Is there a second?
Well, to the extent you make that motion,
Predicated on?
Barring the DOT
subject to WSDOT's review and approval, which I don't think we have any reason to think it's not gonna happen. It's just a matter of when they issue the piece of paper.
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded, discussion.
I think I have vetted Liberty Concrete. I've worked with all these other contractors. And I am 100% okay with this.
Any other comments?
We're obligated to award to the lowest bidder, lowest responsive bidder, who is Liberty Concrete.
And I will say from a financial standpoint, that's a good bid for the city.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's a really good bid for the city. I mean, it is, engineer's estimate was 2.7.
It was right there close to Liberty.
Okay. Okay,
Yeah, 2.38,
2.38,
and they
okay.
were 2.37.
So,
Can't get a lot closer than that.
no. So we have a motion and a second. We have any further discussion? Seeing or hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Hearing none opposed, the City of Millwood awards to Liberty Concrete in the amount of because we're not doing the ad alternate, did we take the whole package or
I
just
think you took the whole thing.
in the amount of $2,388,557? The contract for construction of Argonne Road, Empire to Liberty Congestion Relief, otherwise known as the Argonne Congestion Relief Project. Subject to WashDOT's final approval of the bid and contract. That is the outcome.
Thank you, Matt.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Matt.
So that brings us to our regular action items for consideration. That consists of, our first action item is the consent agenda consisting of the February 2025 council meeting minutes, the February 2025 treasurer's report, the February 2025 claims and payroll, and the reappointment of Barbara St. Clair and Dr. Annie Oakes to the Historic Preservation Commission. Would any person like to take any of those items separately? Seeing or hearing none, do I have a motion on the consent agenda as amended and presented?
I'll make a motion to accept the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
Oh, Kelly's got it.
Moved and seconded, any discussion? Seeing or hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The consent agenda is approved unanimously, thank you very much. And that brings us to item 9B, which is ordinance 544, the Spokane, adoption by reference of the Spokane County off-street parking and loading standards. This was voted for council voted to table this ordinance on November 12th, 2024. And at the request of our city planner, we are returning this to council for further consideration. So, Amanda, take it away.
Alright, so, I kind of feel if I would have been here in November, it would have been a whole lot clearer. I apologize, I was not able to attend that meeting. I had the opportunity to review Shireen Young's comments, and I actually had addressed them in an email, but somehow it didn't get to you that evening. Her comments are completely valid if you're adopting it as a whole. You're not. What this serves as is filling in the gaps in the Millwood Code. Gaps that were very apparent to us when projects like Magnolia came in. And I'm looking and seeing 6-foot wide parking stalls, and there is absolutely nothing in the Millwood Code that prevents that. As is same with driveways, same with pedestrian access through the commercial parking lots. All those little things that are missing in the Millwood Code. I have worked with the Spokane County Code as an interim before. It functions well as an interim. And I think it will put a point in time that we can utilize these standards until Millwood can adopt their standards, hopefully as part of the periodic update. When you go through, go ahead, Lisa, and go to page 55 of the packet. Sorry, 53 of the packet. So, as you can see, there's, other in the title, there is nothing highlighted here. Okay, go ahead and keep going down. All of those are the parking requirements that Shereen Young was concerned about wholeheartedly. Millwood has a parking ordinance. We know how many square feet of building per stall, et cetera, no problem. Then you get down to here, parking lot location and design. Okay, go ahead and go down. Has all the different dimensions and everything for aisleways, all that. Go ahead and go down. And a little bit more. And then next goes into the parking lot surfacing and marking, showing having crosswalks in driveways for commercial vehicles, pedestrian access. And then go ahead and go down just a couple other pages. And loading standards. Right now, there's nothing that I could see that if somebody wanted to pull a semi-truck up to unload for Safeway and they wanted to park on Vista and block the side of the road other than the public right-of-way portion, there's nothing in the planning side to prevent that. And so all these things that are highlighted, those 4 sections, are the ones that I'm looking at for filling in the gaps in the code. It wouldn't even need to be codified because all you do is include the ordinance as an interim. We refer back to the ordinance until I can get it repealed and into your code. Hopefully that explains it a little better.
So just to clarify, that was a great presentation, but basically everything that's addressed already in the code is gonna stay.
Yes.
This is just an interim placeholder until we do the comprehensive plan and put some details to that. You did mention the Magnolia project. How would this impacted the Magnolia project if they applied for it today?
Well, we wouldn't have how do we widen those parking stalls from 6 foot? Voluntarily, they're working through with us, but this would actually require them to be the standard that's specified in here. It would also require the width of each driveway to be a certain.
So some of the ambiguity that we were actually fighting is now baked right into it until the comprehensive plan, and of course, code always overrides everything.
Yes, and so this would go away once we incorporate all these little individual components into the Millwood Municipal Code for Millwood.
Thank you.
Any questions for Amanda?
So if we adopt this by reference, are these enforceable?
Yes.
And
Could you be adopting it as an ordinance, even though it's identified as interim?
yeah. So like parking areas, for like residential driveways, parking areas shall be 50% of the lot frontage or 40 feet, whichever is less.
Which page was that?
Page 57, section 14.802.060, section 9,
Yes,
9A.
yes.
So I have several neighbors with RV parking alongside their yard.
Mm-hmm,
And it says these vehicles are prohibited from parking in the front yard if they're not on the driveway.
okay.
So are we gonna have a bunch of code enforcement issues with people with boats and RVs out in their front gravel
If
side
you would
yard?
like to remove section 9 of that, we can. This was actually a conversation we had with Planning Commission, and I said unless there's an issue that comes up that we needed to utilize that, no, I was not planning on utilizing that. But we didn't want to go through and start picking and choosing, within, because the majority we'd be looking at, you don't want vehicles backing onto the right of way, the other portions of that. And so we elected, or Planning Commission elected to not go through and specify out. They were entrusting me to utilize this in the manner that the city wanted to utilize it.
My only hesitation is that if we adopt this by reference, how do we selectively enforce what's in this? You could have code enforcement complaints saying it's in this Spokane County.
Those are also existing situations you brought up though, is that correct?
What if they're not existing? What if somebody wants to do a side yard to park an RV?
Theoretically, if you wanted to utilize code enforcement for subsection 9 there, and it was a brand new use put in after this, yes, you could use code enforcement on that.
But I mean, to what he said though, we would have to actually specify that starting today type of language in here, or else you could actually retroactively, like if Sean's neighbor just decides to like, hey, I didn't like this, now I got something I can complain about.
Yeah,
We wouldn't, yeah, if there's an existing use that would be in existence prior to adoption of this, that we wouldn't be in, I mean, I don't like using the word vested or grandfathered, but we would not be we'd be in a gray area of enforcement, let's put it that way.
it's just somewhat confusing because one neighbor has an RV on gravel and then you wanna do that.
Well,
I mean, we can,
so I
I should have
forgive me, I'm confused. So wait, this is just, you can't take more than 40, is this the driveway or
this is the driveway.
So based on this, you wouldn't have a driveway that encompasses the entire front of the property. So you couldn't pave the entire front.
You could pave 40 feet,
Yeah.
which is wide enough for 2 cars.
pave or?
It says you can use brick pavers, solidly compacted gravel.
Anything that would be considered a hard surface.
I share your concern. Do you have a recommendation, or Kelly as a
I-
former planning person?
Do we adopt this for the commercial areas to prevent?
Right, I have the same concern. So this is a stopgap measure. I'm not sure, Mr. Worst, I'm not sure we can selectively enforce it. Right, and so.
Well, you would be applying it prospectively, you're not using it from a code enforcement
Right,
going backwards.
right,
It would be applicable prospectively.
right, in the future. And
And if it's a concern, you can remove section 9.
right,
The other
We should go
portions that
through it.
reference the backing and stuff, that's where we
Do you wanna
started
go
getting
through it
into
and
the
wait
line,
one more month?
to the,
Strike section 9.
to the parking stall dimensions and
all of
stuff. Section 9 kind of stands out on its own.
Yeah.
So did the planning commission go through this? So the planning commission went through it. What was the planning commission's recommendation?
To adopt the, as proposed. We did discuss the section 9 in very similar terms. And I'd have to go back and check the notes. Some didn't even see an issue with it, if I remember, but they recommended adopting it as proposed.
If I recall correctly, and this was a conversation that we had, the planning commission's concern after on the review was, there's so many holes in the current city code, Millwood code on parking.
No, I get that. There's a
That-
lot of undefined.
You know, yeah, and so trying to, and I guess maybe what helps the council is, using Matt's term, because it caught me, assuage your concerns. I love that term. I just texted him and told him nice vocabulary. What's the timing you think for a city developed parking
Well, it'd
code?
be, because we put everything on hold with the periodic update, I wouldn't be able to bring anything back until we start the implementation portion, which is 2026, possibly into 2027.
Yeah.
Because this isn't a mandatory thing.
So that's the fear, is you could have another 2 years of those sufficient holes that have been publicly expressed and discussed.
So I can run out and I can pave my entire front right
Yeah,
now?
you know, I don't think
No, there's still
what
the
we're shooting for.
ratio.
Oh, I got a lot of land. I got a lot of
Yeah,
land.
we don't have a perfect scenario. I mean, if the thought is to do a scrub through this and see if there are issues that jump out to you, I mean.
But we have had a scrub through it. The planning commission went through it.
You did. Ultimately, they make a recommendation and it comes to the council for final vote accountability. I do, you know, I will say, having worked with the planning commission and, you know, having at least two on your council, the work they do, if it comes up and and there are questions about what review went through at the planning commission, you know, they do a good job and they spend 2-hour meeting going through this very item. I think that's recognized. It's not perfect, but we're trying to fill a hole right now.
I feel like, to your point, I agree. I don't think we should be like, oh, let's spend a month like going through it because the planning commission already went through it. But this issue did come up, and I think Sean just legitimately brought it up. So, I mean, we could either just strike that one issue, and we've still made the big major movement towards filling a lot of holes and resolving a lot of ambiguity, and then, you know, continue the process.
Were there any other sections of this document that the planning commission had?
That literally number 9 was the biggest one I remember. And they elected to just go ahead and reference that if it refers to Millwood, if it refers to a Spokane County residential zone, it transpires to be a Millwood residential zone, and they said just go ahead and leave it. However, it can go either way. Literally, section 9 is not a die on the sword. It's not the issue that we're encountering. The other portions that are highlighted are.
Because I agree, we brought this forward in November, we've had tons of time, and the spirit of it is just a 2-year patch to get us to moving forward.
Exactly. The other thing we have is we have like lot coverage, right? So this is a stopgap measure. I guess my recommendation is let's take out, would be, do you think, Amanda, is all section 9? Or is it just section 9A that was the issue? Seems like it's all of section 9.
Yeah, strike section 9.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, because we would already require the.
that was the biggest thing I saw
Yeah.
was section 9.
That's what I saw too.
Yeah, so section 9.
Okay.
Yeah.
So 14.802.060 subsection 9.
Yes.
So what is, I guess if you were asked, if city is asking council to consider a motion, what is that motion? Because I don't see a prescribed motion in here, or is there one that I have missed?
Yeah, so it would be on slide number 49, or packet number 49.
There we go, thank
You
you.
can, number 2, affirm the suggested amendment as revised by the council, following the criteria set forth, and stating that it makes the, it's not adversely affecting the public health safety, it's not in violation of any state or federal law, and it meets the intent and purpose of the comprehensive plan.
Do we need to, this is more of a legal question, do we need to specifically call out the sections of Spokane County Code that we are adopting by reference?
So I think page 46 of your council packet, which is the exhibit to ordinance 54, that would make the revision to 17040.35 of the city code. I think where it says, along with Spokane County Chapter 14.802 off-street parking and loading standards, parenthetical excluding, I'd have to go back and look at this section references.
Section 9.
Yeah, but you know, amend
14.802.060 number 9.
14.802.060.
Yeah, to
Yeah.
14.802.060.9.
Yeah, so if you wanna
Probably
reference the
excluding.
4 sections, you'd be adopting 14.802.060, excluding number 9, 14.802.
Well, I think the easiest and the cleanest for the code is you just, in the code amendment that's presented on 46, after where it says, along with Spokane County Chapter 802 off-street parking and loading standards, parenthetical, excluding Spokane County Code Section 14.802.060 subsection 9. I think that would capture your concerns this evening.
I think so too.
So we would, you know, to the extent a motion is made, we would ask that the motion be made to reflect the amendment to Exhibit 8 to Ordinance 544 as presented.
Okay, so this is just, so we're highlighting these sections, but not this section. So are we not including, she said, or Amanda, you're talking about just
The
the
highlights.
highlighted in blue.
Yeah.
Well, there's other sections in 14.802.
That's why we're including this as a reference in the ordinance, that we'd be utilizing the highlighted sections.
Should
That's not what the
we should
ordinance says.
we should enumerate those and
Yeah, so let us do this. We know that we need to strike 9. We know we need to strike 14, 802, 060, 9. But what we will do for the ordinance is we will come back and we will specifically in the ordinance, so this will come back for consideration at the April meeting. We will come back with an ordinance that specifically enumerates the highlighted sections, and then we can say we're incorporating 14.802.060 parking lot location and design except for section 9, and then we can hit the other ones as well, because we seem to have a few in here, and I do think that that would make it a lot clearer to anyone who is using said document. Because there are a few other sections of 14.802 that don't apply to us.
That makes sense.
All right, any other? So that will come back to council for hopefully final consideration and action in April. So,
And you're not gonna go out and pave before then?
oh, I'm gonna do whatever.
Lot coverage.
I got lots of lot, and I'm gonna cover it. So that brings us to, that concludes our action items for consideration this evening. And that brings us to 10A, our reports. Our first report is from our treasurer, Ms. Mackin.
I don't have anything for you.
Do we have any questions for our treasurer this evening?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up is our jack of all trades, our clerk, public records and code enforcement, Ms. Castles.
Hello, we've had 3 public records requests that we've completed. There were 2 more that were due by the 21st, and Deb got me the information for those today, so I'll be completing those tomorrow. And so we are at 0. Yay. Code enforcement, we have had a lot, but Ryan said I need to talk about this one a little bit.
When you
We've
get
had-
a win, you gotta let the council know.
This was a pretty big one, I thought, anyway. It didn't just affect one person, it affected a whole neighborhood, and I just felt so bad for these people. And they had been living with this for 4 years, and it was a barking dog that was just nonstop barking for numerous hours of the day and night, to where they were unable to use their yards. And I felt, it was just nonstop. They had made numerous complaints to Scraps, and then were told that they had no complaints against this person. And so it was it was so bad. The first lady called me, and this was in October, she called me the first time. And then another neighbor came forth, and I was like, okay, this is it. I went to Scraps and talked to them there with the complaints that I had, and they said they had one complaint, and I was like, no, I don't think so. I think there's been way more than that. And tried to play nice, came back hoping just me being there would do something. And then I got an email from someone and said, well, if they have a complaint, they have to list it just like this. And I said, okay. So I told the gentleman this is what we had to do. He brought his computer here. We filled out the complaint form together here online, and I scanned in his pages that he had written, and they had to be so specific. It was from 9:05 to 9:12 on this date. From 10:15 to 10:45 this date. Multiple times during the day. He had like 10 entries for one day. He had 10 pages, and it had to be 2 weeks in a row. This was the requirement that was sent to me by them, that this is how it had to be, and which I thought was ridiculous. But we did exactly what he said and sent it in, and he even said, he goes, now watch, as soon as I send this in, that dog's gonna stop barking. And I was like, he goes, it happens every time. And I said, this is so weird. And sure enough, but I've been in contact with them, and the 3 of them, and I'm considering it closed because it's been almost 2 weeks now. and they have not had any barking. And they are just thrilled, and I'm thrilled.
So quick summary, real quick. We don't have an enforcement ability under our code. With our scraps contract, that goes to scraps.
Yeah.
That answer, that response from legal was insufficient for Lisa. So she worked with the citizen to see it through, went to scraps, did city code enforcement efforts. And so that's why I just want to make sure that you heard the result of it, because we had no enforcement ability yet. She still found a way to try to get the matter resolved. So, and sometimes that's how it works.
Maybe I should have saved that one for last, because now the next one is not so
You'll
good.
learn.
No, the next one is a continuing problem that we're dealing with, and I've spoken with the property owner and said I can't not move it forward any longer, and so I'll leave that to Brian now.
So we always discuss the property address. 9614 Frederick has had an accumulation of trash, rubbish, junk, litter, garbage. Now there's concerns of animals feeding into the garbage, mice affecting neighbors. And when the city gets presented with a code enforcement issue, it's not a matter of the city trying to thumb down on the property owner. It's really complaint driven, and how it affects those around them is where the enforcement comes in, similar to the barking dog situation. Lisa's had a significant amount of discussion with the property owner, said just show me some progress, show me something. I think the last progress you indicated was maybe back in late summer, fall last year.
Yeah, September.
Yeah, and it has stopped, and the property owner has made communications to Lisa that it's not going to pick up or continue. There's always circumstances in everybody's life that gets in the way of doing things, but the counterpoint to this is the city's been. This has been at least one code action request identifies this has been a condition for 11 years. It's not the first time code enforcement's received it at the city. Lisa's been on it for, how long did you say? August of last year. So we do not like taking abatement actions in Superior Court, but we would like to request authority from the council to use that if need be. If the property owner, again, we would tell the property owner we have authority to go in and abate. We don't want to do that, but you have to do something. And if you can't or you won't do it, the city will have to seek an abatement order from the Superior Court. In some cases, the city has experienced where there's been such an accumulation of trash, the city's abatement, although the costs get assessed to the property as a lien, the city's abatement has been a relief because the property owner just doesn't know what to do and where to go. So we do not like to file those actions, but if we have to, we like to have that, and we're just not sure at this point, waiting another month of inaction that affects the property owners, especially with the report of mice and raccoons that are hitting it. So I think what we'd like to ask the council is for approval to be exercised very judiciously. We do not want to go to court, but if we have to initiate a code enforcement action against 9614 Frederick to abate the existing nuisances on the property.
May I ask a follow-up question? You mentioned that sometimes abatement's actually like a grace and that there's some relief there. Do we actually offer that information as just part of our protocol? Like, hey, and not just asking them like, can you clean this up, but say, do you know how to get this cleaned up? Or there's some services that the cities worked with before. Do we actually point them in the right direction?
I don't know of any services for
Yeah,
free.
And
I mean,
Oh, I'm not saying for free, I'm
that's
saying.
what they're looking, yeah,
We
that's
can't.
the issue.
yeah, that we
Also.
can't do because that would be promoting.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
we could put together a list, but
we could, if we have judicial authority, we could tell them we have authority to initiate the action. The city would get the order, the city would abate, the cost will be assessed to your property as a lien, the city will be paid at some point with interest. The one instance that it was done, I think you guys were the ones moving the machinery over there, and that's what the property owner expressed to somebody. He goes, I could have never done this.
He was very irate at first, and by the time we got done, he's like, "Oh my gosh, that's like this huge weight's been lifted off my chest."
Yeah, it was.
And I kind of feel like this might be the same thing, cause it's a sad
And
situation.
I understand we can't randomly promote. I was just saying that feels like a reality. Maybe we do it before we take them to, you know.
Well, we can't enter the property without
Yeah.
a court order, that's the only thing.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even think you could contract and get protection that way, we'd have to get a court order, is all.
So we have like tried to hold their hands a little bit and say, okay, can we work on this and try to take baby steps, you know, towards the whole goal to make it easier for them.
Yeah, this one in particular, we really have done that a lot.
Yeah, this
Me and the others.
is not something that just popped out last couple of weeks. This has been an issue for a good long while.
So,
So a motion,
we would request a motion, from the council authorizing, providing authority to initiate a code enforcement abatement action at the property of 9614 Frederick.
I'll make a motion authorizing the city to take legal action for abatement at 9416 East Frederick,
9614.
9614 East Frederick if necessary.
Is there a second? Second. Moved and seconded. Any discussion from council?
Sounds like it's necessary
Yeah,
at this
and
point.
this is year 12, and we've only done one in the 12 years I've been here, so that's a pretty good run. So, all in favor? Any opposed? Hearing none opposed, unanimously moved. So,
Thank you.
Mr. Worst will work on that.
Okay.
So that is, anything else, Lisa? Is that kinda?
No, go ahead, yeah, he's got one more code enforcement.
Oh, go ahead,
I'll
sorry.
just piggyback off of her time, and that way I can say there's nothing from legal standpoint. In the same theme of patience, the property on Trent Avenue, help me with the address. 10423. We've had an ongoing code enforcement effort. If you recall, the city paused its code enforcement efforts last year when it was made known in the media and in the news that the property owner was undergoing a federal prosecution through the U.S. Attorney's Office. So we stepped back because we figured their attention was focused on that. That seemingly got delayed, so we refocused the code enforcement effort on the property last year. That matter, I am told by the U.S. Attorney's Office, is scheduled to go to trial in early April. The reason I'm aware of that is certain city officials and employees, former employees, may be subpoenaed as witnesses as part of that trial. I'm working on a subpoena to supply documentation to the U.S. Attorney's Office regarding the activities on the property which the U.S. Attorney believes fed into the basis for the federal prosecution, the charges. So, never had that one, never got a U.S. Attorney subpoena before. So, yeah.
Who's got two thumbs and it's going to federal court?
So, but no, I think, yeah, lead with the good, or end with the good one next time, Lisa, that was.
Okay, yeah, okay, sorry.
So, thank you.
So that concludes Ms. Castle's report. So facilities, Mr. Shiwi.
Well, as you guys probably finally figured out, we actually had a few weeks of winter in the last month. Gave us a few long days and nights of plowing. We did the arterials several times and 2 full city plows and lots of de-icing and some sanding. After that, of course, we had a quick thaw, so we're out there locating and cleaning storm drains and repairing potholes that popped up. On the 24th, we had our first tree board meeting of the year. I caught them up with where we were at on the tree grant work that happened in December. And we also discussed upcoming Arbor Day plans. Charlie Peterson, the board chair, announced his resignation, and the 2 other members had also voiced their desire to retire from the board if we could find some new members. I did have one gentleman in attendance that my employee Sam found. He lives here in Millwood, and he has a pretty vast background in forestry and tree pruning. And he came to the meeting and I introduced them, and he sent in a kind of an application to be on the board. So I haven't gotten any further with Kevin and done anything with that. But that's only one person and we're gonna need at least 2 more.
Can city council sit on the tree board?
I don't think so. We'd have to look at it, but I think to the extent that you set the parameters, policies, and rules, it'd be the doctrine of incompatible offices. Otherwise, you'd end up recusing yourself from every action or recommendation of the tree board, probably. So,
That's fair. Thank you.
yeah.
So if anybody knows anybody, we do need a couple to keep that board alive. Also, I got all the final reports before, after, and during pictures of all the tree work that was done and all the invoices sent into DNRs for our reimbursement on the grant, so that's pretty much finalized after we get a check from them. Finally, with everything else going on, I didn't get the details out for the speed humps early enough to the different contractors to give them adequate time to get their bids back in. So hopefully, well, no, not hopefully, next month I will have a tabulation form for you guys from the contractors for the double speed hump as requested. And I'm hoping that since we kind of talked about this at length now over the last few months, that if everybody's comfortable with it, hopefully we can just go ahead and approve it with the lowest bidder to move forward. I really want to make sure that those are in before the county wants to come in and do the whole chip seal project. So I will definitely be bringing those back next month.
Okay.
And I think that's all I got.
Any other questions for Kyle? Mr. Erdahl, utilities.
All the water samples came back good again this month. We had a few more frozen meters with that cold snap in February. Bryce, Sam, and I went to the truck rodeo. It's an all-day class on water classes. And then me and Bryce are signed up for the SRC4 conference coming up in March. More water classes. And I had a meeting with Ashley at Welch Comer to start updating our water system plan and the capital improvement plan. And at lift station 1, we did have a little problem. We lost power down there. So Vista had come out, squirrels chewing on the line or something. We got that all up and running. Everything's flowing again.
Hooray. Any questions for Matt? Thank you. Ms. Tanya, do you wanna
Yes.
chime in on anything?
So the planning commission has been working diligently on the comprehensive plan. We're about to wrap up the chapters 1 to 4 and the new parks and recreation element. I've conducted some more interviews or discussions. Finally had a chance to sit down with Millwood neighborhood advocates and talk over some housing things and other topics. And we're anticipating the planning commission will have a public hearing, but no recommendation. So we're going to strike that from the work plan. You won't see it back in May on chapters 1 to 4 and the Parks and Recreation element. It's just to give one more opportunity for the public to come in, and then we are on to housing and land use and capital facilities and stuff. Had a few application review and processing, a little bit of code enforcement assistance that I was helping Lisa with. And then coordinating, the biggest one on here, I guess, would be 2708 North Laura. This is a variance application, and I have a feeling this is going to come up more and more, so I'm going to look at it as we're going through the code with the updates. We have sections of the city that are obviously older, and the setbacks in a lot of those, what the reality is versus what the code requires, do not match. And so in this case, this is going to be a hearing examiner, public hearing, and actually I defer, hold on. Brian, am I allowed to describe this, because the appeal goes to Superior Court for the hearing examiner, correct?
Yeah. From a variance?
Yeah.
I have to look at the code.
Okay.
I think that is correct. Off the top of my head, I just don't know off the top of my head.
Okay, I will limit discussion. Basically, this is the first one that's been uncovered, and we're gonna try and hopefully in the future remedy this so we don't have to have additional variances. There's no guarantee, obviously, if it would be approved or not. More to come. And as part of the periodic update, coordination with SRTC for the Horizon 2050, continuing to stay apprised on requirements for state law for the update, everything from design review through additional housing information. And then incorporation of ordinance 524 and 525. So I noticed this early on, and I finally had an opportunity to go through and really look at it. Anything that was adopted prior to the 2019 update to the comprehensive plan was not included in the comprehensive plan. So the comprehensive plan was never actually updated. So I went through, and the two ordinances that were in play were 524 and 525. 525 is just a single line referencing the tip. 524 were some pretty significant modifications to the historic preservation, as well as the goals, policies, and actions. I have now gone through and incorporated 524 into the comp plan, and so that'll be in the versions of the draft going forward. For future reference, if we ever have annual amendments to a comp plan, I immediately go in and make those amendments, and then it's updated forth, so we don't have to come back to a periodic update version. I don't know how it had been done in the past, but at least we caught it, and it's going to be included. So, I think that was pretty much it. Yeah, just more meetings for the periodic update. So, were there any questions on the report?
Questions? Thank you very much, Amanda. Legal, Mr. Worst, any more?
Nope, just again, as a reminder, need to request an executive session with the council. Presumably we'll announce it for 20 minutes and then extend if needed.
And who will be required at that?
Let's see, well, council. For the basis of the announcement, legal counsel will need to be present. I guess, should we start with the mayor and treasurer, presumably?
Yeah.
Okay.
So any questions for Brian on anything that came up? Mayor's report. Mayor was gone for 20 days and had a wonderful time. Thank you very much. A few things. We are beginning to get ready for coordination with the engineer, and now that the contractor is approved or the bid's been awarded, we will begin to set up meetings regarding Argonne congestion relief, bring in contractor, the owner, the contracting owner, plus their selected superintendent for this project. We'll have a meeting with Welchcomer and their selected project representative, and myself and Kyle and everyone, and we'll kick that off and begin planning public outreach, and then reaching out to Inland Empire and discuss with them. Had to have a couple meetings with the auditor prior to communicate what we were looking for in regards to understanding the tax shift for IEP. We're going to begin working on with Mr. Worst a preparation of a policy and procedure manual for city policies and procedures. One of the things that we've found over the past few years is that we have the code, but then we have a lot of things that are policies and procedures that have been codified in various ordinances and or resolutions that we don't always have at the ready, and that tends to, in a hectic day, lead to some issues with respect to staff being able to quickly answer questions, quote the right sources, things like that. So the idea is to develop a holistic policy and procedure manual for the city that that in one place wraps up all the different things that we have with respect to contracting, public works, fiscal policies and procedures. We have a human resources, we have an employee manual, we have all that. This is a lot more about getting all the sort of day-to-day operational policies together in one place that can be used as a reference for not only staff but citizens if they're looking for something. To that end, we're gonna be making some changes to some of the policies. The auditor, we've completed the audit. The auditor has some management and has a finding, and so we will be working to enhance our policies and procedures with respect to that finding, and get everything kind of dialed in on that, where everything is very well known to anyone who needs to come in on that. I think for right now, it's just a matter of and staff trying to set the table for summer and when it ever comes, and get ready for construction and anything else we have to do. Any questions? Mr. Stravens?
So when do we think, what's our time frame for Millwood being on the sheriff's vehicle? Is that coming soon?
Well, it's an additional 20 days because I have the scalar vector graphic that I need to provide to Under Sheriff Kittle staff. But quite honestly, I was having too much fun where I was to worry about getting that over to them. So that is on my list to get over. I am getting reports from Deputy Ball. One thing I would suggest is if you talk to citizens, particularly as we're going into summer, and we know how things change once the weather gets a little warmer, Deputy is looking for areas that we may get comments back from citizens, or if we know of areas that are potential hot spots, things like that. Deputy's looking for ways he can assist and enhance his patrol work in the city. So I would say don't funnel them to me, funnel them to Lisa. But if you get things like that, or Daniel or whoever's here that can get in front of that. But if you have things like that, please pass them on when you get them, because Deputy really wants to get that in and get that in his route and get that on the radar. Yes.
So second part of that question, do we expect to get like periodic updates from the deputy?
Yeah, there's
or something like that.
So he's actually I kind of told him every other month, but I think he's going to produce something every month. I have one sitting on my computer. I forgot about it. I will include that in the next packet, and I'm sure that Deputy will have one for there. He basically kind of gives a summary, not as much as, like I did this on this day sort of thing, but things that he's seeing, action items or stuff like that. But he's looking for things we need to do, but yes. And I will make sure that gets filtered out to council. I apologize.
Perfect.
Is it appropriate to invite him like we invite Chief Soto to like some periodic actual face?
He understands when our council meetings are. His schedule floats, and so he has said that if he has availability, he's more than happy to attend the meetings. Often it either means he's in the car or it's a day off for him. So he doesn't have a regular 9 to 5 schedule like Chief Soto has. So as available, he will personally attend the meetings.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, so that concludes our reports for this evening. Speaking of the sheriff, for item 11, you have in your packet the January intelligence report from the sheriff's office. And so at this time, we are to item number 12, public remarks. They are an opportunity for citizens to address the council, either in person or by submitting their remarks to Remarks Millwood Law. We ask that our in-person speakers limit themselves to 2 minutes and follow the citizen participation guides. Do we have anyone signed up?
We do. Shireen. Tina is my checker.
Shireen, come on down.
Oh, well, this is intelligent.
Hello, thank you. This is Shireen Young at 8903 East Liberty, and happy to be here. Thank you for the information about submitting of the farmers market event request. And so to that end, I was talking to Matt Gillis. We will submit early the request about our Millwood Days, which is August 23rd. And I was asking Matt if that will be when the project's done, and he's not sure about that. The big lead time item is polls apparently, and he said he's not real sure, even if we started, like right after Mother's Day, he's not sure those polls would be available. So anyway, we'll submit it, we'll figure it out, and we'll go from there. So at any rate, that was it, and I thank you so much for your time.
But just to speak to polls, the polls are an odd item, and the polls, we've already begun in the procurement process for the polls. There are a couple options that we have. We could go with temporary polls if that is required. We are going to pursue some potential, because we have sourced with using City of Spokane's procurement contract. I think we need 5 polls. 4 of them are a kind of standard poll that we're going to see that we could potentially, if City of Spokane has them and is willing to let us pull out of their reserve stock, we're going to pursue that option. One of them is a unique double-mast poll that it comes when it comes, but we always have the opportunity to use temporary polls for that. And so signaling should not be an issue from the standpoint of polls. Hopefully, most of the road work will be done by Millwood Days. Okay. That is the intent. Now, always with the caveat that we have little to no control over when Union Pacific decides to do whatever Union Pacific is going to decide to do. They are on notice. They have been given everything. They are supposed to be procuring their items, all that sort of stuff. But their work is primarily signals and relocation of that doghouse over there to the other side of the street, off of our right-of-way, a lot of other things like that. But with regards to their new signal apparatus, it's UP. So hopefully
Thank you so much. Yes, I appreciate it.
Any other comments? Second call for public comment. Third and final call for public comment. Public remarks. Seeing nobody charge forward, we will close the public remarks. And that brings us to council remarks for the evening. We'll start with Ms. Vesey.
Well, thank you, staff, for everything that you've done, taking good care of the winter and then everything. I did have a follow-up question in regards to this attendance policy for the council. So I have not missed anything for over 12 months, but what is the protocol if I got sick? Because last month I was sick, but I did end up actually calling in.
The only protocol is that basically I should not be the one saying, what it should be is, if you're really going to follow the RCW, somebody who is absent, who has requested an absence, the council needs to either accept or deny that absence. That's it. It doesn't change anything on person in who has business commitment or family commitment or anything. It just means that I should not be the one going, and that person's absence. It is your meeting, it should come to you, and you guys should say, or you folks should say, yay or nay.
You would just ask us for that approval.
Yes.
But we could still, obviously for vacation, I could ask a month in advance, but being sick, I could still just call Lisa if I needed to.
Even if something popped up the day of and you couldn't make it.
It's for when people just stop showing up.
Yeah.
Which is 3 or more times.
That's right. It's a removal mechanism, and as the mayor said, he shouldn't be making. He can't. The RCW has presumed that you're making the determination amongst yourselves. So. This one, honestly, this should have been on me to enforce accordingly, but I think this is really kind of that Robert's Rules of Order scratch and sniff test for me. If as an elected body and group, if you're needing to operate by these strict rules, then that probably says more about the nature of the group than the the rule itself.
It's
I
just,
just wanted to be a rule follower, not kicked off the council for
No,
something I
no.
didn't know about.
no, and it appears, the way I look at it is, if it's called out as a specific enumerated point within the code, it probably should be something that we should at least be following, and it doesn't take any time. And I can say that most other elected body, or most other bodies that I attend, you phone in with your absences, or you say, and then somebody reads it off and says, people have requested absences. Yay, it's more a perfunctory thing, but it's at least checking the box.
Thank you.
Mr. Culler.
No comments other than thank you staff and Amanda for ferreting out all the parking issues on that Spokane County Code. And good to hear about a win in code enforcement for Lisa.
Mr. Van Hees.
I have spoken to the deputy a few times,
Okay.
and
That's what he said.
I'm sure.
In what capacity?
we're very well acquainted.
We've seen those police reports.
I've introduced him to my kids. I told him a couple of things, and I just like to say, I can't believe the amount of police presence.
Exactly.
Even coming here tonight. There's one parked at City Hall, one parked at the apartment, there's one across the street. I'm like,
They're looking for.
are they staking me out?
It is.
Right?
It is interesting that because now that we have a assigned deputy here, the other deputies are beginning to use the scope office as a coordination and handoff point. And I also think that they are using the Millwood route to do some training of the new deputies. So we have more deputies than
Yeah.
we've ever had.
Yep.
So
And
it's a good thing.
and it's been really beneficial. I mean, I left for work this morning. No, yesterday. And he was parked down the street facing me, and I parked next to him, and I was like, back in my driveway. You can see both ways, you don't have to sit weird. And he's like, oh man, I go, yeah, just watch out for my kid, he's gonna be leaving for school.
It's not even just on the main road. It's like in our little corner, mine and Kelly's. Like, I haven't seen someone here for like 30 years.
In a mind-blown minute yesterday, Matt and I saw somebody pulled over on Empire.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
I don't know if they got a ticket or not, but I'm hoping so.
That's about all I have.
Excellent. And Mr. Strevitz.
Thank you, staff. Appreciate it.
So do we have any announcements that we need to make? Anything coming up? Anything?
With the May tour with that's a huge deal. I mean, that's a big deal, so that's gonna be really cool. Other than that, I don't really know what's going on, but.
So, before we set the next meeting, we should begin our executive session. So I guess the question would become, because we have a limited audience and we would have to adjourn, are either of our audience members considering staying for adjournment? Okay, then I would say at this point, the executive session could be held here, and that would include Ms. Mackin, Mr. Wurst, myself, and council. The rest of you are excused. The executive session, Mr. Wurst, do you want to read it off?
City Council will convene to executive session pursuant to RCW 4230-110 subsection 1I for 20 minutes upon commencement of the executive session and unless otherwise extended by further announcement to discuss with legal counsel legal risks or potential litigation of the city. For clarification purposes, the City Council will not take action upon conclusion of the executive session.
And so for 20 minutes, so you want to call it how we're going to do it, when we're going to start?
Yeah. Could we take? I know it's late. Can we take a quick restroom break?
Sure. Please. Yeah. So when do we want to start?
Go ahead.
8:15, 8:20?
Yeah, I could be there. Yep.
8:20.
Well, let's go 8:15.
8:15.
Okay.